Hi students, welcome to lesson number 25 on social institutions, and today we are going to discuss economy as a social institution. Economic institutions cater to the survival needs of community, every society, and community develops ways of coping with everyday situations of life. Social institutions are nothing but pattern arrangements and networks which attend to everyday survival needs. The economic institutions are built around the survival needs of a society. Different societies have come up with different economic consumption of the goods and services. Family, which is viewed by sociologists and anthropologists as one of the primary and elementary institutions, has largely been supplemented and even replaced by institutions of economy and polity. For the vast majority of human history, the family was the economy, the polity, the religious system, healthcare system, and socialization and educational system, and so on. The other institutions began to emerge as separate and distinct from the role family was performing. The students will be able to understand the social institutions and economy as a social institution. They will also understand the importance of work and various forms of modern works, and they will also understand the types of economic system that were existing earlier and today. Now, economy as a social institution. Economy is a system of production, consumption, and distribution of wealth. It deals with scarce resources to satisfy unlimited wants. The main objective of economics is to maximize profit or utility at some opportunity cost. Capitalism is a type of economic system in which profit or utility is maximized at any cost. According to John J. McInnes, economy is a social institution that organizes a society's production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. P. Ginsberg defines economic system as that complex of interrelated institutions through which the economic activity of man is expressed. According to Calhoun, Light, and Keeler, the social institution that accomplishes the goal of producing and distributing goods and services within a society is called economic institution. Sociologists define economy more broadly as a social institution that organizes the production, distribution, and consumption of a society's goods and services. Defined in this way, the economy touches us all. Keep in mind that the economy is not the same as government, which is the social institution through which power is distributed and exercised. Economy and government are social institutions that are certainly intertwined, but conceptually they are distinct. Above are some of the economic functions and definitions, but when we talk about economy as a social institution, the concept of basic economy diverges to social welfare. As a social institution, economy of a country must deal with equal distribution of wealth to alleviate poverty, to ensure the provision of basic needs, and to ensure the provision of opportunity. As a social institution, government starts many welfare programs to support poor people economically. Thus, economy itself believes to maximize utility or profit. But as a social institution, economy must deal with moderation in satisfaction of utility. While discussing about economic, another concept which comes to our mind is work. What is work? As children and young students, we imagine what kind of work we will do when we grow up. According to Oxford Dictionary, defines work as an expenditure of energy, striving application of effort to some purpose. The economists speak of work as one of the main factors of production, consisting of manual or mental exertion for which wages, salaries, or professional fees are received. Work here quite clearly refers to paid employment. This is the most widely understood sense of work in modern times. This in fact is an oversimplified view. Many types of work do not conform to the idea of paid employment. Much of the work done in the informal economy, for example, is not recorded in any direct way in the official employment statistics. The term informal economy refers to transactions outside the sphere of regular employment, sometimes involving the exchange of cash for services provided, but also often involving the direct exchange of goods or services. We can define work, whether paid or unpaid, as a carrying out of tasks requiring the expenditure of mental and physical effort, which has as its objective to the production of goods and services that cater to human needs. Here, what happens is that whatever is flooded in the society is not recorded, which leads to various problems. And as a sociologist, we need to study these problems. Now, let us understand the forms of works. Now, the modern forms of works. First, it depends upon the extension of complex division of labor. In pre-modern forms of society, most people worked in the field or cared for their livestock. In the industrially developed society, only a tiny proportion of the population works in agriculture, and farming itself has become industrialized. It is carried on largely by means of machines rather than by human hand. In a country like India, the largest share of the population continues to be rural and agricultural or involved in other rural-based occupations. There are other trends in India too. For instance, an expansion of the service sector, one of the most distinctive characteristics of the economic system of modern societies, is the existence of highly complex division of labor. Work has been divided into an enormous number of different occupations in which people specialize. In traditional societies, non-agricultural work entailed the mastery of a craft. Craft skills were learned through a lengthy period of apprenticeship, and the workers normally carried out all aspects of the production process from beginning to end. The other form we see is a shift in location of work. Modern societies also witnesses a shift in the location of work. Before industrialization, most work took place at home, was completed collectively by all members of the household. Advances in industrial technology such as machinery operating on electricity and coal contributed to the separation of work from home. Factories owned by capitalist entrepreneurs became the focal point of industrial development. People seeking jobs in factories were trained to perform the specialized tasks and receive a wage for their work. Managers supervised the work for their task was to enhance workers' productivity and discipline. Another concept is the economic expansion of economic interdependence. One of the main features of modern societies is an enormous expansion of economic interdependence. We are all dependent on an immense number of other workers, stretching right across the world, for the products and services that sustain our lives. With few exceptions, the vast majority of people in modern societies do not produce the food they eat, the houses they live in, or the material goods they consume. There is a transformation of work industrial process were broken down into simple operations that could be precisely timed, organized and monitored. Mass production demands mass markets. One of the most significant innovation was the construction of a moving assembly line. Modern industrial production needed expensive equipment and continuous monitoring of employees through monitoring or surveillance systems. Over the last decades, there has been a shift to what is often called flexible production and decentralization of work. It is argued that in this period of globalization, it is a growing competition between firms and countries that makes it essential for firms to organize production, suiting the changing market conditions. Let us now discuss the sectors of economy. The sectors of the economy are as follows. The three revolutions, the economy is composed of three sectors. First is the primary sector, which is a part of the economy that takes and uses raw materials directly from the natural environment. Its activities include agriculture, fishing, forestry and mining. The secondary sector of the economy transforms raw materials into finished products and is essentially the manufacturing industry. Finally, the tertiary sector is a part of the economy that provides services rather than products. Its activities include clerical work, healthcare, teaching and information technology services. Societies differ in many ways, but they all have produced, distribute and consume goods and services. How this happens depends on which sector of the economy are most important. This latter variable in turn depends heavily on the level of society's development. Generally speaking, the less developed a society's economy, the more important its primary sector. The more developed a society's economy, the more important is its tertiary sector. As society is developed economically over the centuries, the primary sector becomes less important and the tertiary sector become more and more important. The primary sector was certainly the only sector in the hunting and gathering societies that existed thousands of years ago. But the tertiary sectors dominate much of the economy in today's wealthiest democracies. Now, we will discuss how different economic systems have evolved over time. The different types of economic systems that we will discuss are broad generalizations. In reality, they are much more complex and mixed, and in a world which is increasingly interconnected, there is no pure type. The first type of economic system was hunting and gathering economy. The most basic level of economic social institutions development with the simplest division of labor is the hunting and gathering economy. By division of labor, we mean economic specialization of society's task. Each of these tasks is connected with other related tasks. In the hunting and gathering economies, there is no cultivation and no manufacturing. People obtain their survival necessities directly from nature. The men usually hunt and women gather fruits, roots, etc. These societies are organized in small bands of people, that is about 15 to 30 people. The small size of each society or such societies is dictated by the nature of their economy. Hunting and gathering can support only a limited number of people at subsistence level, producing enough food, clothing, shelter to be able to survive. There is no surplus, in other words, there is nothing left after people meet their basic needs. Since hunting gathering societies have a limited degree of specialization of task or discussion of labor, the band or clan had a greater degree of similarity of experience. Therefore, there is greater level of consensus and community participation in all aspects of life. Also, ownership is communal. Today, there are few societies which practice hunting and gathering. Even if they do, they have introduced new techniques and influences from the larger world around them. Some of the best examples of hunting gathering societies is the bush people of Kalahari Desert. The second type of economic system is the pastoral and horticulture economy. When small societies learn the more complex mechanism of sowing seeds and growing plants and breeding animals so that they could domesticate and breed herds of them, they were in a position to enter a new phase, the pastoral phase. This phase involved cultivation on a small scale, usually gardens for immediate limited subsistence level consumption. The technology used was very simple, primarily human power and hand tools such as hoes and plows. They are more often pushed by a person. The other aspect of this economy is the herding of livestock. These tasks of growing plants and raising animals obviously involved a fair amount of settled life. Among the pastoralists, there are the nomadic varieties that follow a seasonal migration pattern that can vary from years to year. The time and destination of migrations are determined primarily by the needs of herd animals for water and fodder. These nomadic societies do not create permanent settlements, but they live in tents or other relatively easily constructed dwelling year around. The pastoral society is larger than a hunting gathering society, but still relatively smaller. The division of labor is little based on age and sex as in the hunting gathering societies. The other major type is the agrarian economy. Many social scientists and experts believe that cultivation of crops probably started in an agrarian economy, where cultivation of crops took primacy over hunting and gathering for food. This is accompanied by technological innovations such as metal tools, the invention of the plow, using animal power to tilling of the land. In agricultural societies, permanent settlements are the rule. Sufficient food surplus can be produced to feed larger groups. Thus, agrarian societies are organizationally more complex with definite hierarchical stratum. With more surplus food available, some members of the society were free to pursue other occupations like weaving, pottery, metalwork, etc. Agrarian economies made it possible for towns and cities to develop and for full-time crafts, people and traders and emerge. There was also sufficient production to support a ruling class as well as a range of specialized occupations including administrations, soldiering and scholars. Many eminent civilizations were agrarian societies. Ancient Rome was a bustling city with links to distant points by trade routes both by land and sea. Now, we will discuss about industrial economy. During the last 200 or more years, the changes that have taken place in social organization and economic system have been tremendous. The shift was machine replacing human and animal power. The replacing of hand labor with power driven machinery and the economy and the social change that resulted from this is known as industrial revolution. Various path-breaking innovations such as the steam engine, spinning jenny among others made possible mechanized production on a large scale to meet needs of the masses of people. From England, industrialization spread to Europe and other parts of the world. Since the power-driven machinery had to be stationed at a particular place as they were huge, they arose the factory system. The factory is a place where workers could assemble at one place and work on the machine. The cost, size and complexity of the machinery made it unsuitable for the earlier system of scattered production in small shops and homes. The factory system had many consequences. A new class of factory workers emerged. These workers had a different relationship with factory owners and their employers, which was impersonal and detached. In contrast to hand production, which had individual touch and interpretation, factory production was standardized. Standardization made it possible from parts to be easily replaceable, leading to assembly line production, where different parts were produced by different workers and then assembled together. This kind of assembly line production produced a sense of estrangement from one's work. Karl Marx, the famous thinker, elaborated on this situation of alienation. Now, let us understand the economic system of the world. In the entire world, there are two major economic systems, and we can also see the blend of these two economic systems. That is capitalism at the first level, and second it is socialism. Capitalism. Capitalism is a system under which resources and means of production are privately owned. Cities are encouraged to seek profit for themselves, and success and failure of an enterprise is determined by free market competition. As people pursue personal profit under capitalism, they compete with each other for the greatest profits. Businesses try to attract more demand for their products in many ways, including lowering prices, creating better products, and advertising how wonderful their products are. In capitalist theory, such competition helps ensure the best products at the lowest prices, again benefiting society as a whole. Such competition also helps ensure that no single party controls an entire market. According to Smith, the competition that characterizes capitalism should be left to operate on its own, free of government intervention or control. For this reason, capitalism is often referred to as laissez-faire, from French for leave alone. Capitalism and terms to describe capitalism include the free enterprise system and the free market. For example, the United States is a capitalist nation, but the government still regulates many industries to varying degrees. The industries usually prefer less regulation, while their critics usually prefer more regulations. Now, we will discuss about socialism. Socialism is a system under which resources and means of production are owned by the society as a whole. Right to property are limited. The good of the whole society is stressed more than individual profit, and the government maintain control of the economy. The most important goal of socialism is not the pursuit of personal profit, but rather work for the collective good. The needs of society are considered more important than the needs of the individual. Because of this view, individuals do not compete with each other for profit. Instead, they work together for the good of everyone. If under capitalism, the government is supposed to let the economy alone, under socialism, the government controls the economy. The ideal outcome of socialism, said Marx, would be a truly classless or communist society. In such a society, all members are equal and stratification does not exist. Obviously, Marx's vision of a communist society was never fulfilled, and nations that called themselves communists departed drastically from his vision of communism. China is an example of socialist economy, where the resources are controlled by the government. Now, we will understand the blend of these two economic systems, that is economy and that is capitalism and socialism. The first is the welfare capitalism. Welfare capitalism is a system that features a market-based economy coupled with an extension of social system that includes free health care, education and other benefits to all citizens. For example, Sweden allows private business ownership. The government controls the significant part of the economy and high taxes for support and extension array of social welfare programs. Next, it is the state capitalism. It is a system under which resources and means of production are privately owned but closely monitored and regulated by the government. Example, in South Korea, where the government worked very closely with the country's major companies to ensure that their success in the global market. Now, we will understand the convergence theory of economy. We have seen how the economies of some capitalist countries such as United States have features that are very similar to socialism. Some industries, particularly utilities, are either owned by the government or controlled through regulations. Public programs such as welfare, Medicare and Social Security exist to provide public funds for private needs. In studying the economics of developing countries to see if they go through the same stages as previously developed nations did, sociologists have observed a pattern they call convergence. This describes a theory that societies move towards similarity over time as their economies develop. Convergence theory explains that as a country's economy grows, its societal organization changes to become more like that of an industrialized society. Rather than staying in one job for a lifetime, people begin to move from job to job as conditions improve and opportunities arises. This means the workforce needs continual training and retraining. Workers move from rural areas to cities as they become centers of economic activity, and the government takes a larger role in providing expanded public services. Supporters of the theory point to Germany, France and Japan, countries that rapidly rebuilt their economies after World War II. They pointed how in the 1960s and 1970s, East Asian countries like Singapore, South Korea and Taiwan converged with countries with developed economies. They are now considered developed countries themselves. The experience this rapid growth, the economies of developing countries must to be able to attract inexpensive capital to invest in new businesses and to improve traditionally low productivity. They need access to new international markets for buying the goods. If these characteristics are not in place, then their economics cannot catch up. This is why the economics of some countries are diverging rather than converging. Another key characteristic of economic growth regards the implementation of technology. A developing country can bypass some steps of implementing technology that other nations faced earlier. Television and telephone systems are good examples. while developed countries spend significant time and money establishing elaborate system infrastructures based on metal wires or fiber optic cables. Developing countries today can go directly to cell phone and satellite transmission with much less investment. Another factor affects convergence concerning social structure. Early in their development, countries such as Brazil and Cuba had economies based on cash crops, it is coffee or sugarcane, for instance, grown on large plantation by unskilled workers. The elite ran the plantations and the government with little interest in training and educating the populace for other endeavors. This restricted economic growth until the power of the wealthy plantation owners was challenged. Improved economies generally lead to wider social improvement. Society benefits from improved educational system and allowed people more time to devote to learning and leisure. Economy refers to the social institution through which a society's resources, that is the goods and services, are managed. The agricultural revolution led to development of the first economies that was based on trading goods. Mechanization of the manufacturing process led to industrial revolution and gave rise to two major competing economic systems. Under capitalism, private owners invest their capital and that of others to produce goods and services. They can sell in a given market. Prices and wages are set by supply and demand and competition. Under socialism, the means of production is commonly owned and the economy is controlled centrally by government. Several countries' economics exhibit a mix of both systems. Convergence theory seeks to explain the correlation between a country's level of development and changes in its economic structure.